Hello, we're starting again. I forgot to record a little bit earlier. I forgot to record the all the stuff about this file here. Like when I coded this, I just forgot to record myself, so that's a little bit unfortunate. But I'm gonna post this now into Slack as a code to text snippet. Yeah, it's like the video is very undefined. We're doing JavaScript, right? Choop. Okay, so sorry for that. We're gonna add something like this. Sorry, forgot to record my voice to this. Sad smiley. What we want to talk about now is functions. We just did that, but now we want to get into loops. And here. So some of you in your homework are already seen that some of you used some loops and did some stuff. And also last week I showed you a loop when we did this big C, yeah. And then there was one line which came like 7 times. And then I used the loop to do it 7 times for me. Yeah? So loop is also something very dry, so we don't have to repeat ourselves. It does something over and over and over again. And in JavaScript we often use a loop, for instance, let's say you are programming a web page for like a newspaper. Yeah? And then you have a lot of news articles. Yeah? And each these news articles have to display it the same way, right? So you just loop and you say the first article, the second article, console log, the first article, console log, the second article. It just repeats the same thing for all of them, because for each article the same thing has to be done. Yeah? Does that make sense? And now we're going to look at loops a little bit more abstract. And the most important thing of the loop is basically this little thing here, in these brackets or here. Let me first say there are for loops and while loops. Yeah? On the left side here is a while loop, on the right side is a for loop. I really like for loops. I barely use while loops. That's again a philosophy, but sometimes it's good to have the while loops. Yeah? So let's first look at the for loop here. What do you think will happen when I run this code?
It should repeat.
You know?
Yeah, it should be short I.
Yes.
From 0.
Yes.
And to 9.
Exactly. So we'll 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. Yeah. So what's happening? Yeah. So first, what the for loop does, it looks into these brackets here, and there are 3 things in these brackets. First, it's the starting condition. Yeah. Or the starting statement, not starting condition, the starting statement, yeah? Or expression, or yes.
Initializer. Or
yeah, so this is the first thing you do. Then there's a condition, yeah? This condition is checked every time. And if this condition is true, we stay in the loop. If this condition is false, we carry on underneath. Yeah? And this is the last part of the loop. Yeah? This is what the loop always does in the end. Yeah? So what happens here? We go into the loop. He starts as I is equal to 0. Yeah? Then he checks, is I smaller than 10? Is that true?
yes.
Yes. So it goes into the loop. Console log 0. End of the loop, I++. What do you think this stands for? Exactly. It's the same as I is equal to I plus 1. Yeah? So I is now 1. We check again. I is 1. Is I smaller than 10?
Yeah.
So we console log 1. And we repeat. And we repeat. Exactly the same thing is done over here with a while loop. Yeah? A while loop only has this condition in this parenthesis. And everything else we have to take care of. Yeah? So what I have to do here is create this initializer, which is here and there. And I also have to put the ++ in there to do exactly the same thing. Yeah? You can see here that this is a little bit more compact. Yeah? The rule rule statement is there. Let's say this for loop is so long, yeah? Then this is a rather nice rule. You know exactly what happens in this loop, all the conditions. If this while one is this long, I have no idea where this y++ is. Yeah? What happens if I remove this y++?
There would be
Indefinite.
continue for infinite.
Indefinite.
Exactly, we have an infinite loop. And if we are writing something into like an array, yeah, then at some point we'll get to the end of this array, yeah, or we will get to the end of the memory of the computer. And what is that called?
Infinite.
Stack Overflow.
Yeah, overflow.
Do you know stackoverflow.com?
Yes.
That's and so basically a web page where you can get help for your computer bugs is called after the most famous computer bug. Nice, isn't it? Okay.
But I didn't know that.
Yeah, of course. That's why I'm telling you. So, everyone understood this? Nodding? A little bit of a philosopher grim. So, let's look at this one. This is the for loop. Oh, this is disgusting. Let, right? So, we create fruits here. Oranges, apples, cherries. Here, the same as before, let I is equal to 0. Why 0? Because 0 is also the first element in an array. Yeah? Then we check if I is smaller than fruit's length. We can also make like let fruit length is equal to fruit's length,
Yeah.
and then put the variable here. Yeah? This is again a little bit more compact. Then I++, what does this code then do?
So display orange, apple, and
Exactly. Didn't know what anyone here said, but like it says oranges, apples, cherries. Yeah. Can you make this example with a while?
good.
Go.
You do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. What I'm gonna do for you is into Slack or into a file here, both of that. So here you go, you have this, and then do you also want this stuff, or you want to type it off? You can have it.
How many values did you have in there? 3?
3, I posted it on Slack, exactly here. Oranges, apples, and cherries. And maybe it's a good idea to create a new file now, so that we don't have to run all the code from the first hour when we do this example.
It should print everything
calmly drinking his tea. For those who are already finished, can you write this for loop? Yeah, but it goes backwards. It does cherries, apples, oranges. Yeah. But please don't just change the array.
No. Sure.
We're back to the start.
Yes. And for loop, not while. Okay, good. So the second question for those who already finished this, write the for loop, yeah, but you're not allowed to change this line, yeah, and this for loop should do cherries, apple, oranges, so go backwards.
Oh.
So what's the
Very nice, but it's not all of them coming out.
Just start on the show.
Yeah.
And one.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is a little trick. Yeah. So you need to think of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so what just reverse order or what?
This.
In a for loop, reverse
In a
order.
for loop.
Make sure you are. So start with 3. And then 1. And then so 5 is 3. And then you want to also make 3 is then 3.
Right. So
3 is then you need to go back. Like is there arrow? Exactly where 3 less than 3 equals 5. There's less than 3. And that true or false?
There's this one.
3 is true. Is false. 3 equals 3 is true. Okay. So it will be just finish it. Here? No. That's fine. Yes.
Very nice. Yeah. No worries. And now try to do it not a for, but a while. Yes. Exactly. But I also copy this in this one.
So there's 5 equals 4. That is 3. And now the condition. And what I mean is so 3 is faster. Okay. 3 is this 3. Is this 3?
So you can see that
Yes. And becomes 1. Okay. And the next time 3 becomes 2. These 2 get easy.
Beautiful, beautiful. What else? Loops.
So now 2 becomes 1. Is this 1? Yes. Yes.
You need help?
And again, if it is done now it's 0, then what happens? It should stop. Before run, just think about you want it.
What do you want to see there?
Oh, okay. That's easy. No.
So if you
Okay.
have
But why is this doing the control?
Okay.
There's the condition.
Then when it's on, there's going to be 2.
And
See here? This is what should be inside of your while. And you're missing the link. Does that make sense? You understand why?
It is 2 now.
Yeah.
And 2 is greater than equals to 0. And it's going to shift parameters now.
Something.
Yeah, and that means root J, root 2, root. Anything that is going to
Could everyone manage to do the while loop?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Do I get notes? Thank you.
Check it.
We have do one as well.
Do while?
Do one as well. Do loop as well. Or
Do one exists, but I want to watch today.
And you want to use it
If you go into Slack.
What was the error before we were? I
You go
said it the
down.
same way.
So just one important thing, remember that even though the for loop takes in this 3 things, the while loop only takes in the condition, only one. So out of the things that we have in the for loop, you will only have that condition here. We don't need to do the I and the this need to be done by you separately. So the while only takes in one thing, and that is the condition.
You see that? So we have a for here, and it takes in 3 things, and we have a while here, it takes 1. Yeah? If you look in your code, you have a while and you put in 3 things.
But like outside of 4, so it's
Conditions
It's length. Because you want to compare a number.
Yeah.
So it means that even if 2 things starts from 0, like in reverse, you need to 2, 1, 0, change the 3 index again. So just make something. Yeah, I'm just telling you. Make a loop that starts from 2, and then it will come up with 1 and then 0. That's what
No, but here the thing is that I did exactly the same before. So why didn't it come before? What was wrong? Because I did put J inside as well, but now I just moved it and put it again.
Okay, because that's the magic.
Oh, why wasn't it working?
Sometimes for time.
Okay, so you have to do it. Thanks.
So the second one again is take this code, I posted it on Slack, yeah, but now iterate through this array backwards. So do cherries, apples, oranges, but don't change this line.
So there is people who are working with arrow, please attention please. Do you know if it is an array like orange, apple, cherries? So what are the indexes? Like it's an array with 3 elements. Okay? So the indexes are something like 1, 2, 3.
0, 1, 0, 1, 2.
0, 1, 2. That's the mistakes people I found that. So think like that. The index of orange is 0. That is 1 and that is 2. When you reverse, so we start with 2, 1, 0. When you forward, then you start with 0, 1, 2. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
zero.
No, no.
Your condition is
Yes,
set
it
for
takes it from 0, 1, 2, when it says length, and then it starts from 1 to 2.
zero.
Indexes are included.
Something like that.
And lengths are given.
Yes.
Yeah.
Check it every time.
So length is here 3. So when you say I have 3 minus 1, so I is
Trying to remove that.
so for I 2, then it's going to
Oh, yeah.
then you use 0, and then it's going to string, and it's going to say whose I, and it was whose I is equals to 2, talking about this. And it's going to be, you should write on this minus 1, it's going to be 0. Then you can write on this 1. So 1 is equals to 0, suppose, or 1,
If you're on the little salted island,
Yeah. I remember first. Why was it like
and indexes are just think of it like when you are moving a language,
This is called a stack.
let's say I have 10
It is
words,
huge.
they have my 4 letters. So you're not going to say from 0
Close the
to 4.
control.
Just press Control C.
Indexes are
What's the problem? There is no stop. You have to mark it as a stop. Before writing, think first. What does the program do? It's true. And okay, then
this one like stick to one because I mentioned
is less than
because here
the
you can also do the thing is like
2 is
two
less than
because you know
okay, it's
put
closing.
aside 2 because you know all the
And then it will 2 becomes 1 is there. And it becomes continuous. So what you need to do, start with 2, stop at 0. Put it 2, 1, 0. So this is condition is
number of examples are all
so I should stop at 0.
which says that which means that last index is always length minus 1.
Is that good?
Last
Program
index
has
is
2.
always length minus 1.
So we just go inside and then
So I can keep this last index is always
and then
it's fine.
1 I think inside equals 0. So this time here is less than equals 0. I have to write 2 become 1. And then 1 0 is equal to 0. So then
starts with 0. 0, 1, 1. So it will 3, 2, 3, it will terminate. And then I plus terminate with semicolon. And then second reverse it. First, your array is here. Okay? So you want 1, 2, 3 values in here. This one is index 0, this one index 1, and this one is index 0. So when you want it to print in the reverse order, because you are using these indexes which are inside the so because you are using this one first, so then you should start it with 2. So because you want to log so it's in reverse order. First one should be this one, and the index value of this one is 2. So that's why I should start with 3. Got it?
and now it says this.
This is 4.
Yes.
Because you want to do it in reverse order. Where the last one what would I do? So I put why are you doing that again? Because already done that one line. So you don't need to do much. Just put fruits out there. It will give you four stroke length will give you 3, but your index will not be the same as this one. So it will be greater than equal to when you have to talk in ascending order, then you go 0, 1, 0. When you do it in ascending 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So that's why it's minus. So if you do the plus plus, then it will go up and up and up. Okay? But you need to bring this and this way. So in this way, it's I plus plus. In this way, it's I minus minus because you are starting here. So you are starting at level 2. Then I minus minus will make I is equal to 1. Then again minus minus with I will make I equal to 0. Again minus minus I will equal to minus 1. Where this steps will
So everyone managed to do the while exercise, right? And you have a good grasp on how the for loop works, right? And what I do, because even it doesn't matter how many years you program, it's always good to, you should always make a graph and say, like, if I is 1, what does it return? If it's 2, what does it return? If it's 3, actually it's 0, blah, blah, blah. Because you need to make sense of it in your head before you can start to even look at the error. So you will find the pattern when you write it up, and then it will make more sense.
just run it. Yeah.
So, is everyone fine? You solved both questions? I'm seeing very tired faces.
If you have, excuse me, hi. If you have more questions about loops, we can talk about it at the end of the class, but we just want to cover something else that is about your homework. Okay. And yeah, otherwise, you're very good with loops, I think, now. If you want to practice more, that's okay. We're just going to cover objects quickly.
Yes. So, don't know how you want to do it. Do you just want to use those slides?
Yeah, I'll use those slides.
That's not the right. This one is fine?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Right. So listen to me. Forget about loops now. I need you all to focus.
We need your
now.
hands up. Everyone, hands up. Hands
we need
up.
to talk
Hands
about
up. Hands
something
up.
else.
Hands up. Everyone, hands up. Yes. Now they are not on the computer. So we want to move on. We can discuss loops a little bit more later. And if we have time, we'll even do another exercise. But this is important because a lot of your homework uses objects.
Right. So we've talked about a lot of the data types in JavaScript, right? If you raise your hand and tell me the data types that we've learned, you know them, yeah?
Data types.
Data types.
Integer.
Number, yeah.
String.
Boolean. Number, string, yeah. And array.
Undefined.
That's all is on the top.
So we're going to introduce a new data object that is called a data type that's called an object. And this is meant for when you want to store different information about the same thing, right? So this example is an object that has the attribute of an ID, which is 1, the attribute title, which is this one string, and the attribute of text. And this is the object of a news article, right? Does this make sense?
No.
No. Why doesn't make sense about this?
Because it's really long.
Too much text.
So we can think about another example for an object. What do you think works as something like this? As a set of attributes?
Student is an object.
So student could be an object. We say student equals, and an object is represented by the brackets the same way as a function. But this is not a function, this is an object. And it must have attributes inside. So what is the attribute of a student?
Name, roll number, class.
Just one. So name is an attribute. And this attribute is a data type of its own, right? So name, Alicia. What else?
Class.
Class 8. Data type number. What else?
Height.
Sure, height. 158 centimeters. Or 158. Whatever you want. So this is an object that has many different attributes, right? What else do you think is stored as an object? That you could store as an object?
So
Yeah?
function.
A function.
Object is a representative of the class or something that we want to arrange it and put some data in it.
Right, what would be an example of that?
For example, while you are defining a function or while you define a class, you can define an object from this class and you call this object for calling the class.
Right, I'm thinking more abstractly, like in the
I
world.
think he's talking about object-oriented concept of programming, but this one
Right.
is more rather structures.
This is the data type of an object. That's something about object-oriented programming, just an object, yes.
Maybe like I can think of there's a shop of different things, and then they store computers as one object, and maybe
Right.
washing machines.
So an object could be computer or product, right? If we have a data of product, what would be the attributes that a product could have?
A product name, product number,
Name.
model, maybe.
How about price?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, sure. Color.
Price, color,
And then we can have, so let's say you do have a shop where you have a newspaper site, and you have a lot of this. What is the way that we represent a list of things in JavaScript or in programming?
Arrays?
With an array, right?
Yeah.
So we can have an array of objects.
Okay.
And in that way we have a list of
All the products.
all of the products, a list of all of the students, a list of all of the articles, a list of all of the things. Yep.
Like, isn't that what we do the same thing in array? Why? Like, what's the main difference between object and array? Because there's also different things stored in different sections and.
Right, so let's say we have an array of a student. And we have,
it's going to be two
this is
dimensional.
my name, and we want to store also what class I'm in.
Yeah.
Which you put in the same thing. So we have an array of, let's say this. How do I store many of this?
I cannot put variables directly in array, can I? I don't know. I don't know, but just a question. Can I put variables as array?
So an array, this is a
Say if I
list.
just put
This is a
like,
list of things, right? And I don't know what this is. What is H here? Is it
Okay.
H? Is it class?
it's not
Yeah, it's
descriptive
defined
enough.
only by like 0, 1, 2, 3. It's not defined by the name.
Right. So
So-
this gives meaning to, because this is something that you put in. You build the object the way that you want. Yeah.
In another programming language called Python, this is called a dictionary.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense then.
So it's a dictionary. You have a name for something, like if you look up, like in a translation book, you look up this for this and this for this. And the array is called a list in Python. So you have lists and dictionaries. And here we have basically arrays and objects. Exactly.
But can anyone tell that what's the advantage over array by creating an object?
I think it's descriptive, more descriptive.
It's more descriptive. Any other advantage? Like we know what is array, but now we are learning objects. What's the advantage?
Array, you have to fix it, I think, with the number of elements, how many you want it in.
Mm-hmm.
But this one will be more abstract. I mean, whenever the next student is in, you just put another node in.
Yeah.
And
actually, it's more descriptive, and we have plenty of options. Anything else?
Like object is more bigger than array. Like we can also count the value of every object to array. Like array can be inside the object, but it cannot be.
Yeah. So the scope is now more wider. Before we are living in a room. Now we are kind of living in 2 rooms or in a big house. So that's the more powerful thing that we are going to learn. That we use those in the future.
One technical question. I mean, to me, for example, student, when you describe it like name, class, and since we know that arrays and JavaScript can hold multiple data types, it's unlike C where we can hold only similar data types. And here it's multiple data types. So when you use an object to declare an array, then isn't it going to be 2-dimensional arrays?
It's more than that.
But what do you mean? If you use an object to declare an array, so if we have
if
an
you
attribute
use this
here that was an array?
So he's saying that objects work as the
two-dimensional arrays. When you use the object in arrays, then it's going to be 2-dimensional array, I think so.
Well,
is it so?
I don't think so. I think 2-dimensional arrays are just that, 2 dimensions inside an array. And the object works more as it's another data type, and you access these are called keys and attributes, right? Okay. And you can only get this from an object, and you can get, like, for example, let's say we have another attribute here that is called pets, and this is an array. This can be an array, right? And this is like, I have a dog whose name is Babu, and I have another dog whose name is Kimi. And I don't get this. This is not an array inside an array. It's an attribute of my object. It's a value.
So you can have a 2-dimensional array without even touching an object.
Yeah. They're not dependent on each other. And the way that we get, so let's say I want to have this is a variable, right? I'm calling this student, and I have a lot of this. So how do I get, let's say I want to print the name of this student. Yep.
By showing them like a console and decide your keys, which was the name, like here is name, so console log name, showing that name.
Student dot name.
Right, so you have an example here. So this attribute, this variable is called news article, and this is another way that you can access a key inside an object. Within the brackets, like you do with an array, we specify the key as a string, and then you get the value that is in there. So here we're getting the news article text, and we're going to get this long string, right? So we could do student, and then brackets, name. And we can also do, it's not here, but we can do student dot name. So in JavaScript, you get attributes from an object in this way as well. And if I say student dot full name, what is that going to be?
Undefined.
Undefined.
Perfectly. Yeah.
Is it going to error?
Nope.
No. It's looking for a key inside my object. It's not there. Then it's undefined. Yep.
Are those two the same? Students.
On the last 2 lines.
Yes.
Yes, they are the same.
Yeah. What is the advantage of this one?
We can show like using for a few keys instead for the next one?
We don't have to write student.name, student.class.
Yeah, exactly.
Like here, we can use any string. So we can put in a variable here which holds the string. And this variable can be anything. So this is a little bit more powerful because we can, you get it?
Yeah.
No?
No.
So this is a string in here, yeah?
Yeah.
This is a string. You can't do that with the other one, am I mistaken? Can you also like somehow like put a string here?
No.
No, okay. So it's correct what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So you can put a string in here, yeah? And this string is again like you can edit it, yeah. So this can change. You can put a variable here which can change during the program is running. Whereas here we will always get the name.
Okay, so that can be treated as variable.
Yeah. So exactly we can do like let and then say K, which is not a good name. And
Or index. Or name of the index or whatever.
It's a key.
Key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Key a reserved word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's not a reserved.
Okay, that was my problem. So key is equal to, and this is a string, and then we can do student key, yeah. And whatever key is, that's what we're going to get out of it. And this we can make this one as, you know, a we can make here we can get a value from a function, and this function does if this, if this, if this.
So object work as a function as well in this case.
No. Like during runtime, while the computer is running, it can choose what happens.
Yeah.
Whereas here, we will always get the name. Maybe we need an example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't we,
Let's
can't we
write some code.
say this property because that's just a property or what did you say element
Attribute.
not name attribute. So can we assign a value to that name in the
Like-
design time somewhere?
Yes.
Like here.
Yeah. This is how you also set stuff in an object. Yeah.
Mhm.
And update it as well. Yeah.
What would be the result? Student dot name output is Alicia and student places name is also Alicia. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't understand what.
They are the same.
They're the same.
It's the flexibility that you have two options to do something similar.
We'll do an example. Just create like this your student.
Yeah.
And also create name, first name, last name. As
Can I delete this?
yeah, or just Control N then.
Control N. Yep. Okay.
And new window.
So I'm gonna create this student. I'm gonna save this just so I can get the syntax. Objects. Am I in the correct place?
Yes, it's fine.
And then the same way that we do with functions and ifs, this is we open with brackets. And then I'm going to start adding my attributes to this. And this is my name, and always separated by commas. Otherwise, you do get an error. And I'm going to get a class 8 and full name or last name.
Do we need a comma in here or?
Yes. Yeah.
And realize how we're not doing this, right?
Yeah, that's the general mistake. We start with object.
We do, because it's a different thing. It's an attribute. And so we specify that with the colon. My last name is and I'm going to print, first I'm going to print the entire object, and then I'm going to print one attribute of that. So just the name. And let's note. So you see there, this is the object that I have built with my keys, and then I get an attribute from that object with the dot notation. And if I do, oops. lost it. There. It works in the same way, right? And then I want to update something. I'm no longer in class 8. I am now in class 9. So in here, I am now adding a new value to my class attribute of my student object.
Actually updating. Before it was 8. Now I am trying to set it 9.
And I'm going to print now the class. Well, it's just the same because I'm printing the object.
Ooh.
And that's how you update the attribute on that.
Any questions so far? Understood so
The
far?
way you were explaining the difference between
These two, yeah, I'll
These
come to
two.
that. I'll come to that.
So we can say like this key that Rasmus was talking about, I'm going to have this to be class now, and I can do this, right? And then if I change this to name and I console log again, and I do the same console log with student key, what is it going to print there?
it's going to print first class, and then it's going to take the key class first, and then name.
Next one's gonna name.
So 9 and Alicia.
Right.
Brilliant.
Can you show
Can you move this one a little to the side?
So I think this is what you were
Yes,
talking
yes,
about.
yes.
And we can choose only the name of attribute.
Yeah.
We can't choose console log Gonzalez.
If we want to do that,
Value. Yeah.
the value,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not last name.
No.
Just Gonzalez.
Empty. Oh, just one job.
Not choose.
Well,
only
okay.
just
We can only choose, like, this is a key, this is a key, this is a key. This
Ah,
is a value,
okay.
This is a value, this is a value.
So we can choose a value. Yeah.
so you're saying like this.
Yeah.
What
Well,
will
let's
happen?
see what happens.
Error, undefined.
It's not a key.
Yeah.
It's not a key name.
Because Gonzalez is a value, it's not a key.
But it's going to look for, it's going to go to this object and it's going to say, is there an attribute named Gonzalez? No. What if I do this?
It will
Yes.
print 1, 2. Yeah. it will
Yeah.
print this.
So this object is, the object is to be designed however it makes sense to you. Maybe the attribute Gonzalez makes sense in your model. Like I'm the number 12 Gonzalez that has ever existed. Not true. Yep.
Here what we did is like just printing or changing or updating values that we put before. But can we do it like I want to add age now, but I don't want to go up in the object and put age.
Yes.
Can I do it here in the 30th line? Adding an attribute later in the object.
Right. Yes. So let's say that I'm going to take student and then I'm going to take age and I'm going to tell you my real age. And then I'm going to print, instead of this is undefined, I'm going to take age. And so
It was same as updating the value of attribute and adding that to the attribute.
yeah, and did you see that even though the console log of the student is supposed to be here, it updated the object. It mutated it and it added that same attribute that we're adding.
No, but you have given another statement. Number 14 here, down there.
Yeah, that's the
but
value of
this is just to
28.
print, this is just to print the 28.
That's 28.
Yeah.
That's the
But you can see
Oh,
the
it's shown up there as
in
well.
the first
yeah,
line.
in the first line it's shown anyway. So it looks at the object and it says, does it have a value already that I need to update? It doesn't. Then I will add another key and set the value that I'm giving it.
Questions?
Isn't it more powerful than array?
Can you like make this one with like the different like the powerful between using the first one and the second one? Can you make?
Do you want to show
Shall I
that?
give it like a quick example I was thinking of? So let's say Alicia's name is Gonzalez and her first name is Alicia. Oops. So, and I'll comment something like this. Oops. So that we keep all the examples. Yes. And here, call it objects too. That's a little bit against our own rule. Objects2. Yeah. So you see that? Let's say we are in a program, yeah, and there's a lot of stuff happening here, yeah. There's a lot of programming code here, and Alicia is on my web page, yeah, and she's logged in. So somewhere on my web page I have student, and it's Alicia because she's going around, yeah. And now I want to print, say, hello Alicia, but I don't know if I'm friends with Alicia yet, yeah. So if we're friends, then only print the first name. If we're not friends, make Alicia Gonzalez. Yeah. So let's let our friends true. if our friends let key is equal to name, and then let nope, key is equal to Alicia. No, yes, first name. And now we do console log student key, exactly. You see how this is now a little bit more powerful than this. You see the difference?
Yes.
Not yet.
But I think like the number 22, it wouldn't like showing up because it's missing comma in the key, or what?
The key is a string.
It's a variable.
It already considered as a string.
Yeah.
Okay.
So dependent on whether Alicia and me are friends or not,
It depends on today.
yeah, we will console log whether she's Alicia Gonzalez or just Alicia. Yeah. So we can now put false, it will say Alicia Gonzalez. We can put true, it will only say Alicia.
Yeah.
Whereas down here, it will always say Alicia Gonzalez. Yeah. And this true here can come from anywhere. You know what I mean? So be a little bit more variable, a little bit more abstract here.
Yeah.
Yes?
I don't get the key thing that you're using.
This here?
Yes. Why student and the square bracket key?
And if you go back to objects.js, your one before, you understand this here?
Yes, I do, because it's declared there student.age.
Exactly. Here.
Yeah. And
so this one access student age.
Yes.
Then what about line 13?
That I don't understand. That's what I'm asking.
So this is a string.
Mm-hmm.
Age is a string. Class is a string. Yeah. So key is a variable where we put in, key is a box where you put in the string.
Yes.
The moment the program arrives at this key, it looks inside of the box and finds the string.
Okay.
The moment the computer arrives here, there's no box, but there's still a string.
Okay, so now the program will replace key with class.
Yes.
And then execute student class.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the second example, our key can be do different things based on something else. Yeah. So our key can be the name or first name. Yeah. And this is dependent on whether Alicia and me are friends. Clear?
Yeah, we have an exercise. So let's say that you're giving, I'm going to show just this part of the slide. So this is your data. And we need to model this into objects in JavaScript. So we need to create objects that contain this information. Can you do that?
one object to contain all of this information. That what you
Yeah,
mean?
one
Or
object,
but
and you
just
can
first
make
one?
array of object.
That's a good shout here.
So,
This looks like a list, doesn't it?
Yes.
so a list of what?
List of objects.
A list, and what is an object here?
Really?
No. It's maybe you, person or human.
Student
Yeah, I
is-
don't understand.
Address.
Yes?
Student is an object, and or employee or whatever, and that's key value. ID, forename, surname, age,
Right.
city, zip code.
So
Yeah, I don't
can
understand.
you model this structure into JavaScript?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. You have
But
question.
we've done that for only one entry,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And this is a list of objects. And how do we model list in JavaScript?
Do we use array
Yeah, we use an array.
inside the object?
The other way around, right?
Object
Array?
inside the array.
Objects inside the array. Right.
Object inside anything.
Yeah.
And please only do like ID, forename, surname, and age. Yeah, because this is fine here, but you're just tipping too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like remove this.
But just to understand, so there is something we learn object, we learn what is called properties and their values. Okay?
So it's possible to make object for every student.
Because this is different.
Yes, it's possible, but do you understand what is the task?
That's going to try
Yeah.
repeating yourself.
Yes.
If you create for every person.
Yeah.
So is that the only assignment we have?
Hmm?
Is that the only assignment we have this week or what? Or do we have more than one assignment?
Can I see the syntax of creating in can I see the syntax?
Here,
Okay, yeah, there it is.
Or we can also do like this. And since you anyway have to do the left part, is that okay here? Like this?
It's only 4. Or
Pardon? Yeah, like don't care about the rest
yeah,
of the
that's
data.
okay. Yeah.
So this is how you do an object, and just do these 4 keys, attributes, and yeah, I can already see what you're coming up with. It's just too much typing.
Yeah.
It's going to
I can see that they will create like an array for forename, put all their names.
But that's not our expectation.
Well, let's see what happens.
Yeah. Well, your expectation is correct, actually.
Yeah, it's a good idea. So we decided to do it together, so that not everyone goes down another route. Let's get a control M.
Yes.
Well,
So
no. But the thing that you did is okay.
yeah, we're gonna do it together.
But, we see that everyone is going to do it differently wrong, so rather one.
But you understand his point.
Okay, so
We'll test it.
That's already.
let's do it together. And let's say that this table was the table of employees.
Do you still see it, or should I turn off the light? It's okay.
It's fine.
And it's an array, right? And I'm gonna have, if I want to add something to an array, I can do it here, and I can also, do you remember what is the the method that I can use to put stuff inside an array? Push. Yeah, that's good. So we can do this. And I'm going to say name. I think they were all American names, so I'm going to say John. And for name, yeah, whatever. And city, Copenhagen. And I'm just going to run this so you see how the array looks like now. This is array of objects. That is true, but JavaScript is going to let me do that anyways. So we now have this. How many elements are in that array?
1, 2, and 4.
It's only one element, but
In array there is one. Like
There is one element in that array, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's say we're going to add 3 of them. So I'm going to, does this work? Yes. And this is John M and John X. And so how does my array look like now?
There should be 3 elements now.
There's 3 objects, right? Each of them have a name, a forename, and a city. And what can I do with that? So let's say that I want to print all of the cities or all of the, okay, this guy lives in Copenhagen and this guy lives in Malmo and this guy lives in Oslo. And I want to know, where do my employees live? I want a list of the cities where my employees live. So I'm going to create, oh God. I'm going to create a loop that, nope, this is wrong. Employees, you guide me through it. What do I need to put in here? Dot, length, and then, oh, length, plus.
Length is
Oh, sorry. Oh. There you go. And I want to console log all of the cities inside my array of objects.
just employees.city.
Is it just employees.city?
Run that.
Let's run this. Let's run this. Undefined. Let me remove this so we know.
We have to use I.
So it's just undefined, right? Because what is employees.city?
Employees I.
What is employees?
It's an array.
Employees.
So you can get an attribute from the array, right? I mean, do you see? This is actually a really good example. What is length of employees?
3.
it's 3. No, 3. Length is
Right.
3.
Length is 3.
Right, but length is an attribute, right? Do you see how we get employees.length in the same way that we get student.name or
Yeah.
employees dot, well, not in this case, but do you see how it is an
That means that length is also an attribute.
of the array?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And every time we call employees.push, somewhere in the background, JavaScript changes an attribute of the array.
Yeah.
So how do we go about printing all of the cities in here?
Employees I.
Employees in my index, and what is employees in my index right now?
Is 0.
0, 1, 2.
And what is that?
And it's the first one, name John, foreign.
It is this object, right? This is wrong. Just name. And if I want to get the city, how do I do?
Dot city.
Or what is the other way that we can get
Key.
brackets
Key.
and then
Yes.
city,
Yeah,
right?
on line 9 is the weird length thing.
But we didn't put dot, so we don't need dot here. That means so it's just like calling it two-dimensional. That how we call it two-dimensional.
Right. Maybe this is what you were talking about, the two-dimensional array. then yes, it does look like that. So we can do that or .city, right? Let's see if this works as it should. It does.
Yeah.
So you can see now how this can be helpful, right? Imagine that you have, again, the array of products that have a bunch of prices, and you want to get the average on that, for example. You need to maybe go through all of that and then do some calculations on it. Or you want to know, yeah, the last names of your students, or there are many ways that you can use this. This is a very practical example. Everything in the web can be modeled as an object, right? So user is always an object that has an email and a password, for example. And when we were talking about the, oh no, which one was it? When we wanted to return 2 values from a function, do you think we can do that with objects now? So let's say that, remember when we did the hours to minutes thing? And we were getting hours and minutes and then doing something here, and we were returning a value. But imagine that we want to return, yeah, let's change this to get name. And this is going to be first name and last name.
Make it get person.
Get person. And then we can say that this person has a first name of first name, which is my parameter, and the last name key is the last name example, the last name parameter, and then we can return the person. And what is this going to return? What type?
It's going to return person.
As an object?
As an object. So I can have 2 things that are, oh wait, I need to cancel it.
One thing when she's typing is we have a lot of first name, last name here. Yeah. On the left side, first name is a key. On the right side, first name is a variable that comes into the function. Yeah.
And now this is a way that I can return 2 values in the same function. Do you remember how we talked about there's always 1 return per function?
Yeah.
But now we can have many values stored as an object that we can get later.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you done?
Yeah. Questions?
Yes. Questions?
Yep.
Done there?
I can understand why we put on in line 8.
Here. So employees is an array. You see that here?
Yeah.
So employees is a shelf. Yeah? And in each shelf we put a box. Yeah? So here we put in the first shelf, we put an object of John L. in Copenhagen. In the third line, we push another object into the shelf, and another object into the shelf. Yeah? After that, we want to look in each of those boxes in our shelf and get the city. Yeah? That's why we have to address in the first loop, we have to say first shelf, next shelf, and in each of these boxes, we then look for the city. Yeah? Yeah.
Something like before as well. Like
Slack, so I can just
Yes.
yeah, something like before. Like before we have a fruits array, where it was an array with only fruits. Now we have
What should I say?
an array
Because
that actually contains each element actually contains
always
another
ask
bucket of
the
fruits.
first step, give me an empty
Like
object
it's
out of
now,
the function.
before we
Show
put
them
on
how
one
they get an
fruit,
empty
now
object
we
out of the
can
function because
put
it's a little bit
fruits or whatever.
counterintuitive. Yeah?
So it's the same shell we use in a different
Do you
way.
want me to?
Make sense?
So, yes?
Can you put that assignment, the work on Slack?
Well, yeah, we put all these files here.
Not this one. What we're supposed to do.
The presentation.
Yes, yeah. I'll also give you all the slides as a PDF. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes. Next.
Can we call now employees as an array or not?
This one is it's an array of objects.
No, it's a valid question. Because before it was array of element, now it is an array of object.
Yeah.
Because remember we had an array of strings, an array of numbers.
Always object it can store only one value. If we make it array, we can store more values.
Yes.
More,
Yes.
more arrays in it.
Yeah.
More elements, and now so the type is object. An array of objects becomes this big thing now, right? You can have a lot of stuff on it.
But when we say what is like an object, is it data type or is it
It's a
data
data
type. It's a data type.
Type of is done like this, right?
Self.
You see in the
Oh, but that's because arrays.
JavaScript, get out of my face. Forget about that. So, a last thing, what I want to say in the homework, they'll ask you a lot to create an empty object.
So that's like we created on the first line.
No, in the first line.
That's array.
Okay.
So how would you?
Very similar.
So that's an empty object.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So like you're gonna ask that, and when it asks you create a function that returns an empty object.
Can anyone say? What's the answer? So we're trying to return.
Empty object.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't contain anything.
Like this.
Yeah.
So it's a very stupid function. Yeah. Yeah. And then we could also do like. Yeah. Like empty object.
And then if
Function.
we do empty object that name equals Alicia,
Yes.
how is empty object going to look now? Is it empty?
No.
No, it's no longer
It,
empty,
it
right?
became sensible.
It
Yeah.
becomes non-empty.
Let's see. Not so stupid anymore. Yeah. All right. Is that understood?
Yes.
So we're going to post this on Slack in a minute, yeah, we're through.
Yeah, that's all. I have 1 minute left.
1 minute left.
1 minute left. Perfect.
Yes. Any questions left? Yeah, there were some hands here.
You can go first. What's the difference between arrays of arrays and arrays of objects?
Arrays of arrays. You understand what an object is?
I'm not able to go wider in my mind.
Is this an object or an array?
Object.
It's object.
It's an object. And so is it different than an array? Yeah. Yeah, right?
Not convinced yet?
Let's give an example here. Array of array.
What I mean is we can achieve the same with arrays of arrays.
No.
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 In that case, you're not going to do description. That's what I had.
Arrays of arrays you can only access with the index numbers, but here you can access with the key values.
So it's more powerful or more restrictive actually.
Even if you go like 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, you're just making it using with the index
John.
numbers. 0, 0, 0 will be the first. 0, 0, 1 will be
Yeah.
The difference is
the second one is the first array. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So here I have an array of array. Yeah. Array of array. In the first, so we have an array, and inside this array are 2 arrays. Yeah. And now implicitly, you understand what I mean by implicitly?
Yeah.
Not explicitly. Implicitly, John lives in Copenhagen and Peter lives in Malmö. Yeah? But we don't 100% know. And if we do an array out of objects out of it, yeah, then we're being more explicit.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the difference.
Every value will be titled in objects array.
Yeah.
It gives more meaning to the structure.
Well, just think the opposite. Like, just make a mess. Like, just change the order. Peter comes first and John later. So actually, the truth is, John actually lives in Copenhagen, but because of your mistake, now John is living in Malmo. Well, that's not what we want. Because object, if you create an object like, hey, it's a person. Person name is John. Person city is Copenhagen. And I have a very clear overview. So this is my object. The object is a person. He has a name. He has a city. And the second person is Peter. He lives in Malmo. So there are less possibilities to make mistakes.
Yeah. We also have another possibility how we can write this. Yeah. And now basically Copenhagen, John and Malmo and Peter are together. This is now a little bit more
Confusing.
you know what I mean? Like, we don't really know. Whereas when this is an object, this is an object, we know exactly what is what. Yes?
No, but with this, we need to write an equation to mark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
An irrelevant question, but I tried to make an two-dimensional, try to define a two-dimensional empty array at home, but it wasn't letting me do it. Like, I was trying to put two brackets, and it was saying just to tell it like there's something coming on later, but it's just an empty array.
Yeah.
So how is that we can do it? Just
It's array inside the array.
yeah, I want a two-dimensional array, but I want to just define it. I will give it value later. So.
But then you need to put the
Is it like everything I have to define it? Like for array, for instance, we can just do it. Like I define it and I will put something later.
Yeah, this would work.
Yeah.
This line here.
Oh, okay, because I didn't put the outer bracket. So
Okay. Yeah.
there was a mistake. And
Yeah,
without comma.
So
The two-dimensional arrays in JavaScript is not bracket. It's bracket and then inside bracket.
Yeah, I did bracket and bracket.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's-
And I'm for sure that if you get the real test of object, you will never come up with these two-dimensional errors. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So try to test the real flavor.
No, but
How object lead all of this world actually. So that will give you more freedom, more power to work with.
So when I console log here, which of these two will be accessed?
First one. First
Second
array.
one. Second array.
Oh, second array. Sorry. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Second one.
All right. Christoph has something to say?
Yes.
But I'll say thank you for today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have really good news, and I also have slightly bad news. The bad news first, you have to keep sitting for about 2-3 more minutes because I'm gonna bore you with a small speech that I actually wanted to do in the beginning today, but I think now most of you might be going down to the julefrokost anyway, so then we can do it now. And then the good news, of course, is because we're all really happy that you made it this far, and it's really cool to see so many of you still here, that you all get a Christmas present, the Happy Future t-shirt. So, of course, they are just done in the other room, and we can go over there and like look for the different sizes or colors that you want out of the two choices that we have. But yeah, then you can grab one afterwards. I'm just going to post real quickly about the Zendesk study group, so everyone sees that again. Remember that there's only 2 spots left. It's on Tuesday already, so just keep it in mind.
But how often is that? Like if I don't come later?
If you don't come this time, when
Yeah.
we try to do this in the next year as well.
Okay.
It's approximately every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it's a company, and then internally they give some time to their employees to do mentoring, but it takes a long time to organize that. So that's why only every other week. Yes, I'm just gonna steal this one if I may. Are you still recording?
Yes, wait a sec. This one you didn't, maybe it's gonna